Greetings to you all and welcome to today's webinar for the National Corn Growers Association Consider Corn Challenge 3, brought to you by Ncga. My name is Brandy Heflin from Ncga and I will be your host and moderator today. Please note that this webinar is being recorded. The recording and transcription will be made available on the Consider Corn Challenge 3 page on Sites. Let's review our agenda for today. After I introduce our speakers, they will discuss the project in greater depth, including the Ncga's initiatives and the topic for the challenge. We'll hear from a winner of a previous Consider Corn Challenge. Then we'll take some time addressing your questions during a live Q&A session, followed by a brief summary of project information, including how to request additional information or assistance. This is a reminder that all participants are in listen-only mode. As we proceed through today's presentation, please feel free to ask questions at any time using the questions box through your GoToWebinar control panel located near the top right of your screen. We'll keep track of your questions and respond to them during the Q&A portion of the webinar. Should you need any information or assistance outside of today's webinar, please contact the Ncga Provider Help Desk at phd@ncga.com. At this time, I'd like to introduce our panelists for today's webinar. We have Sarah from the National Corn Growers Association, Nathan from Biocognito, and Derek from Exopolymer Incorporated. And from Ncga, we have Pam from Ncga North America and Stephen at Ncga Europe. Everyone, thank you all for joining us today. We'll begin with Sarah from Ncga. Sarah, could you please share with our attendees some background on the Ncga and its mission and objectives?
Absolutely, thanks, Brandy. The National Corn Growers Association is a grassroots organization of 40,000 plus members from across the United States. We are a federation of state corn grower associations, and through this network, we represent the interests of all 300,000 corn farmers in America. Our mission is to create and increase opportunities for corn growers. From our perspective, one of the best ways we can create these opportunities is to continue to develop new markets for the corn we produce now and into the future. If you'll go to the next slide, please, I'll talk a little bit more about our vision and objectives. Ncga developed a strategic plan, and as part of this plan, we developed and emphasized a renewed vision for American corn production, and that is to sustainably feed and fuel a growing world. To meet this vision, we set a strategic objective to establish at least 3 new uses for a minimum of 75 million incremental bushels. Accomplishing this task fell upon the growers and staff who make up the Market Development Action Team at Ncga. They're also the same growers that are sponsoring this challenge. In particular, our growers see the Consider Corn Challenge as an avenue to prime the pump for innovation and meet the demand from consumers and companies around the world for bio-based products, materials, and chemicals that not only utilize corn, but leverage the ongoing interest in sustainable solutions. To tell you more about this global landscape, I'll turn it over to Stephen.
Hi everyone, and thanks to Sarah for that great introduction. There are really 3 things driving the bio-based economy globally. The first of all is sustainability drivers. And many people have realized that the key elements for a more sustainable future are improved climate protection, to get control of greenhouse gas emissions, and to spare fossil fuel resources. Now, international organizations, regulators, governments are all setting sustainability targets and asking companies, countries, and entire industries to meet these 3 key elements. And there's more and more legislation being enacted demanding that people address these issues. And that's why I'm really pleased to be associated with the Corn Growers Challenge, because it checks all of the 3 elements for a more sustainable future. The second driver of the bio-based economy globally is there's a huge commercial opportunity. If we look at bioplastics and biopolymers, that market there is expected to grow nearly 3-fold by 2027. And that's a really impressive annual compound growth rate of over 16%. So that alone represents an excellent commercial opportunity. But even then, only 2% of polymers will be biopolymers. And that means there's an even bigger commercial opportunity to make inroads in the remaining 98% of that market. Finally, there's a huge demand for solutions. Ncga, we're continually being approached by world-class companies to help them find solutions to develop more sustainable products, to develop non-plastic materials, and to identify higher value-added biochemistries, chemistries with a biological basis. And again, I'm really pleased that the Corn Growers Challenge speaks to all of these three areas, because I know there's a huge demand for solutions there. And that demand for solutions represents an excellent opportunity for innovators, startups, small and medium-sized companies to provide solutions to large corporations and to whole industries. So really excited to be part of the Corn Growers Challenge. And with that, I'll pass across to the next panelist, which is Sarah.
Thank you, Stephen. So those of you listening are probably wondering why the Consider Corn Challenge 3. We at Ncga and the growers that we represent know that we're not alone in the belief about a new renewable future. There are a significant number of researchers, like those of you listening, that are out there looking for new ways to produce primary chemical building blocks. What we're asking is for researchers to share their ideas through this open innovation format. We chose to partner with Ncga as they have a proven track record of reaching researchers where they work. We launched this challenge on February 1st, and we asked you to submit your proposals by June 3rd. At this point, we'll have a panel of industry experts evaluate the proposals and help us select the ideas that win. We will then publicly announce the winners at an event in September 2021. If you'll go to the next slide, Brandy. I want to talk a little bit more about why this challenge. In this chart, you see will better frame why we decided to pursue this contest. Our members are the most productive, sustainable producers of corn in the world. Every year, we produce a surplus of renewable feedstock that can not only go into existing markets, but potential new markets as well. Moving on to the next slide, you'll see that our growers are doing more with less. Corn production has increased in yield year over year, all while using less land. And the result is an affordable, sustainable, and abundant feedstock for the bio-based chemical industry to utilize. If you go on to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit more about why we engaged our partners at Ncga. For this third Consider Corn Challenge, we decided that the first step was to figure out how to focus this contest. The US corn crop is generally split into 4 primary markets: domestic livestock feed, biofuel, exports, and then the food and industrial use area. While there's potential for growth in all of these markets, our growers believe the best new market to pursue would be industrial utilization, specifically renewable chemicals. We believe that we are at the cusp of a next industrial revolution, and that revolution will be based on biorenewables, not fossilized carbon. To talk a little bit more about why this industry is primed for growth and is a great opportunity, I'm going to turn it over to Nathan Danielson.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it. So, if I was listening to this, I'd be like, okay, people have been in this space for a long time. What are the headwinds? What are the tailwinds that we're facing? And honestly, the tailwinds are significant. So if I think about what has changed, so new technologies have been developed that really get the price of pure corn sugar down from 30 cents, and I've put 15 in here. This is for very clean sugar, but I have clients today in industrial biotechnology that are using sugars from corn that are on the 10-cent a pound range and getting fantastic outputs. So when you think about 10 cents a pound for raw materials, all of a sudden things open up. Large commodity chemicals that have heretofore just been unavailable for us to anticipate or to go after using corn-based sugars. There's been a huge amount of R&D. So I think that there's R&D investment enjoys going where there's other investments. So if you look at the Ginkgos of the world, the Zymergens of the world, people are pumping literally billions of dollars into industrial biotech. So, and what we'll see from that is we'll see increased interest as these companies, begin to file, go public, bring out new materials and new products. Obviously, this increasing consumer interest is essential. As consumers begin to demand a better LCA, a better life cycle analysis from their materials, it's going to be obvious that they're going to want to trend away from fossilized carbon and go with more renewable carbon, and we're in the right spot for that. The dry mill industry, this is something that is been a huge driver within the U.S. economy for jobs in the rural areas and for opportunities. But more so, it's this incredible infrastructure now in place that wasn't there 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And so, what's happening in these rural communities is they're making world-class, very, very high purity, high specification chemicals, and they're learning how to do it. So I think that the next time someone needs to make a high purity, high specification chemical, the opportunities there are significant. It's not just at the big oil refineries on the Gulf Coast any longer. I think this next point is really important too. For a long time, what we've been thinking about is, how do we have drop-in replacements? And drop-in replacements are always challenged because you're going after markets that have incumbents, that have scales of economy, that have fully depreciated capital, etc. What we're seeing now is, along with the incumbents, along with these drop-in materials, which I think the corn costs and the dry mill industry will really help become a lot more economic, we've got a number of new bioadvantage materials that are leading the way. So if you look at ADM with their FDCA, or they call it FDME, but it's furan dicarboxylic acid, which is a replacement, a value-added replacement for terephthalic acid in soda bottles. You can now make carbon fiber through a much, much more environmentally friendly, lower cost process from 3-hydroxypropionic acid. DuPont's 1,3-PDO has actually been in the marketplace for some time and is finding very good traction with consumers that aren't just buying it for its advantaged environmental footprint, but are buying it because it is a better product for them. 1,4-BDO is the same type of thing. The production of it, the chemical is a drop-in chemical at the end of the day, but the production of it is very, very much more cost effective. So, oil's still inexpensive, and it's going to be inexpensive for a long time. But when we no longer have to compete against oil or oil-based products on cost, when we have to compete on performance, I think that we'll see, these molecules that are competing on performance are going to find a foothold in the marketplace. And then the final thing is that the states are creating incentives. So a number of states have launched or are launching new incentives for the production of biotech materials. And where this is going to be important is, again, displacing an incumbent is difficult. Displacing an incumbent when you have some help from good policy becomes much, much easier. So as companies scale up and work their way down the cost curve, these early incentives should really, really help these products reach the market. Sarah, I'll turn it back to you.
Thanks, Nathan. On the next slide, we just talk a little bit more about where our previous Consider Corn Challenge winners have been. And to date, we've had 9 winners across our first 2 Consider Corn Challenges that have been awarded near $300,000 in prize money. And our winners have gone on to achieve some significant results. They've received additional funding, not only from federal grants, but also public and private grants as well. They've entered into joint agreements and takeoff agreements to take their technology to the next level. They've obtained registration for state bio-based production incentives, and they've scaled up to the next phase of development. And you can see the icons of our 9 winners across the first Consider Corn Challenges. And to hear directly from one of our winners, I'm going to turn it over to Derek Wells of Exopolymer to talk about his experience with the Consider Corn Challenge 2.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So we thought we'd just provide an overview of some of the direct benefits that we got from being the winners of the Consider Corn Challenge 2. First and foremost, it's additional funding for early operations. And, as we were starting our company, having that discretionary funding available was very, very helpful in the beginning. So it all helped. and a little bit more important as we've evolved the company here are the connections that the corn growers provided to us of this corn agricultural network in the Midwest. Being out here in California as a startup company, we don't have a lot of insight into all the interesting things that are happening out in the Midwest, especially with regard to fermentation capacity and some of these state incentives that Nathan was talking about. So that's another benefit that we've derived from being the winners. We in particular, going out there for bio and meeting the two other winners, we wound up having a direct research collaboration with one of the other award winners, and we're already getting a lot of interesting data and benefit from that interaction. And we have also received some additional funding from some of these other state-specific corn growers groups, not just the national corn growers. And again, important for our technology is, as I said, expanding our network in the Midwest was important because corn feedstock, since our company is fermentation is at the heart of our technology. Having access to that feedstock is very important for us, and we've already shown that we can produce our product based on some very interesting feedstock streams with some companies coming out of the Midwest. So now I can turn it over to Pam to continue.
Thanks, Derek. We look forward to Exopolymer's continued success. I think this was a great overview. I hope that Derek has inspired you to participate in the Consider Corn Challenge. So let's focus on your entry, what we're looking for, and how you submit. The Consider Corn Challenge 3 seeks empowering technology approaches that enable access to a new market for corn, with preferences given to entries that focus on one or more of these 5 application areas listed above. I know that Nathan mentioned some of these here, but the first one is the novel mixes of PLA, PBS, and PLH, or other combination or molecule for the purpose of timed degradable plastic. Shelf life information should be included in submission details that address these corn-derived plastics. The second bullet point, novel mixes of, an example is novel mixes of glucose-derived PHA and PBS, or another bio-based compostable with high tensile strength and environmental biodegradability. Entries that are compatible with ruminant digestion will score higher for this category. Heavy-duty fuels or drop-in chemicals, for example, sustainable aviation fuel, biodiesel from corn glucose derived directly from fermentation to lipids or catalysis from ethanol, bunker fuel, and the like. Carbon fiber applications such as bio-based polyacrylonitrile. And then the 5th key area are other high-value molecules or a platform molecule that can demonstrate at least 2 derivatives with short-term commercial application. The Consider Corn Challenge 3 is about finding game-changing new uses for field corn, leading to products with significant market demand without detracting from the existing corn market. Scoring will be based on the entry's ability to address and show alignment with Ncga's evaluation criteria. The approach must use components of the corn kernel or corn-based ethanol as a primary feedstock. The highlighted areas in this diagram are the feedstock components that will be considered for this challenge, and this diagram can be found in the challenge summary. We ask you to please review the challenge summary, which is on our website, for all the details, including the eligibility requirements. This challenge is intended to find new and novel uses for field corn with a significant environmental impact. We're seeking approaches that are more than just incremental improvements upon current commercial processes using field corn stock. This challenge is not seeking new foods derived from corn. Your submission must not contain any confidential information, nor can you submit an approach for which you don't own the represented IP or have been authorized by that IP owner to submit on their behalf. Previous winners of Consider Corn Challenges 1 and 2 may not submit a proposal that is essentially the same as their winning entry. Previous submitters who did not win an earlier challenge may submit again if they have made substantial improvements and progress towards commercialization since their last contest submission, or if the submitter has identified a new market for the previously proposed approach that uses greater volumes of corn. The entries will be judged according to the potential for rapid commercialization of the proposed approach, the largest volume of corn used from the feedstocks highlighted on the earlier diagram, demonstrable team history of success developing a path to commercial or industrial scale for other projects, your team's identification of matching funds supporting the development of your approach or potential commercialization partners, and your concise but impactful description of your technology. Please download the response form that is included on the submission site. The response form is an editable Word document that will guide you as you prepare your entry submission to this challenge. On the response form, you will find all the required information to prepare your entry. Your entry, again, must include only non-confidential information. You must provide a description of your proposed approach, including which of the 5 key areas your approach addresses. Please include as much information about the type of corn feedstock your approach requires and in what volumes. Describe the technical maturity and the availability of samples. Also include your budget and funding and list any financial support you have secured for the development and commercialization of your technology. Provide a description of your team members, background, and experience in commercializing new technologies. You can upload additional files to the submission portal, including your completed response form, supporting data, images, and the like. As an option, we welcome you to upload a short video presentation, maybe about 2 to 5 minutes, to pitch your approach and your capabilities. If you choose this option, please provide a private link to your video when you submit your entry. A total cash prize pool of $150,000 will be split equally between 1 to 6 winners, selected based on the strength of their proposed approaches. All 9 winners of the previous 2 corn challenges have received national media recognition and assistance in accelerating their pathway to commercialization, as you've heard from Derek. In addition to the cash prize, Ncga is prepared to extend support for other entries, even if they're not selected for the cash award. Participating in the Consider Corn Challenge 3 provides an opportunity to take your technology to the next level.
Pam, thank you for that information. It's now time for the frequently asked questions. These are questions that have already been asked via the 9 Sigma Provider Help Desk or questions about 9 Sigma projects in general. So first, what happens to my IP if I accept a prize?
Thanks, Brandy. I can take that one. This is Sarah. You know, as Pam kind of alluded to earlier, we definitely want to make sure that any IP that you keep anything confidential to yourself that you wouldn't want shared with Ncga or 9 Sigma through this. So your IP, even if you accept a prize, remains with yourself and with your organization.
Thank you. So Pam, who is going to be the ultimate licensee of this technology? Can Ncga assign the IP to some company?
So I just want to reiterate that the intent of the competition is to encourage you to suggest your technology solutions and innovations to Ncga. Participation in this competition and acceptance of the cash award doesn't obligate you to enter into any business relationship or sign any commercial agreement. So your non-confidential entry will, if that is selected, the relationship will be worked out between you and Ncga. Please refer to the terms and conditions for this challenge for full details. They are downloadable through the submission site.
Thank you. The prize does not seem adequate for funding my proposal. How will my proposal be funded?
Thanks, Brandy. This is definitely a question that we received a lot through the first 2 challenges, but we recognize that the prize pool that we're offering may not be enough for an individual company to always continue on their research, but it's a start. But the real value that we see as a winner of this Consider Corn Challenge is opportunities to leverage Ncga's network across the biotechnology industry and really help kind of elevate the profile of our winners. And we have a lot of communications that come out around winning the Consider Corn Challenge. We've gone on last year, for example, when our last challenge, when we announced our winners, one of our winners had to leave the event early to go make samples for a large industry, a partner that was really interested in the next level of their technology. So I think those are the exciting stories. And, you know, I think that too, one of the things when you look through the proposal and the questions that we're asking, the application process isn't as long as something like a federal grant or otherwise. So it's a really great way to get your technology out there. And I know kind of Derek shared some of the benefits of being a Consider Corn Challenge. So a lot of it has to do with after winning and even beyond the prize money.
Thank you. Would a list of commercialization partners and why they would be a good fit be important?
I'm going to let Nathan answer that one, but and he can expand upon this, but I can give a start here. But definitely as part of the criteria and the rubric, we want to make sure that there's interest in your technology, and if that's not something that you have to share, but if you have people that are already interested in your technology, that'll only help your application. Nathan, anything you want to add to that one?
I think you did a nice job. You know, just the one thing I'd add is just, you know, it shows that you're understanding what the market looks like, who are the key players in the market, and how you would go, you know, how they could help you to actually take your final innovation to the marketplace.
Great. What technology readiness levels are you seeking in this challenge?
Yeah, so let me talk about that. So, you know, this is sort of taken from the DARPA or DOE approach to technology readiness levels. And you can see that really where we're at is we're really interested in a technology readiness level of 3 or beyond. You know, obviously concepts and all that are interesting, but what we really need is we need to see that you're begun to produce low levels of this material so that you've got, you know, enough of the innovation completed where you're beginning to make a small amount. Additionally, you know, I think as you move down this, obviously something that's at a tier level of 3 or 4 is going to be less interesting than something that's at a tier level of 5 or 6. And the other thing that I would say is, you know, on the proof of concept, you know, if you're making a thermochemical product and you're using a very, very expensive catalyst to do so, you know, one of the things that you might want to put in your proposal is, yes, we're using this expensive catalyst, but we see a path to a less expensive catalyst or a way to recycle that catalyst. So things of that nature to show that, yeah, we're early on, but we definitely have a clear line of sight to getting to the later TRL levels. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll open up the session to questions from the audience. Please continue to submit your questions through your Q&A chat box. This is an excellent opportunity for you to pose your questions directly to our speakers. To open the questions box, you first have to open your GoToWebinar control panel if you haven't already. The control panel appears in its closed state by default, and then it's just a small dark rectangle with 3 buttons on the right edge of your screen near the top. When you click the red button with the white arrow, your control panel will open and you will see the questions box as shown on the slide. We'll take the rest of our time today to answer your questions live. If we don't get to your question, don't worry. Our Q&A session is being archived and will be made available on the challenge page. So we'll come back to Pam for a few details about the proposal process. So Pam, can you remind us again, how long should my proposal be?
Sure, and I think there's another question that I see that's following up, and how much detail and information do we need to include in the proposals? I think both those questions are interrelated. There is really no guideline as far as how long your submission needs to be. However, we would ask that you download the response template and that you answer the questions and provide the information requested to the best of your ability and in as much detail as you can. Remember to keep all of your responses in non-confidential terms only, but we do ask that you give us as much information as you can possibly share according to what's written on that response template.
Great, thank you. So our next question goes to Nathan. What criteria will you use to decide who are the winners?
Yeah, again, I would refer people to the full description, the access to a new market, with the, entries that focus on one or more of the key areas, the specific key application areas, showing that you're using the corn kernel. There's always questions about stover. That isn't completely out, but, obviously, we're more focused on corn, on the use of corn grain. Obviously, volume is going to be important when we talk about, the more corn that you can use, the better. And we realized that early on, these technologies might use a modest amount. So as you put your proposal together, consider, what does today look like? What does 5 years look like? And what does your full market look like? Are you going to use a significant volume of field corn? Have it be show that you can demonstrate it, show that you know how to take it from bench to demo to commercialization. So all that's really, really essential, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to show us a techno-economic study, but you do have to show us that you've been thoughtful in developing your approach to taking your product forward. And obviously having funding from other people, as we've said multiple times, this money is for you to use as you wish, but we would love to see it get leveraged with other partners. So to the degree that you can show that, that'd be fantastic. And ultimately, what we do is we put together a spreadsheet that has all of these weighted on them and use that to kind of evaluate the different proposals that come in. So if you can really show us on all these different criteria that you know what you've done, you'll do well. Thank you.
And following up on that, is there an expected timeline for project completion if awarded?
I would say that the timeline, obviously we would like to have products get into the market as soon as possible. So I think that that's kind of this balance of the amount of the size of the market, the amount of corn that you ultimately use, and the time to get there, right? That's the balance of those two. So if you're looking at utilizing 15% of the overall corn market, we'll wait a few years longer for that than if you're looking for 2%. That's kind of a tough way to answer that question, but I think that the view ultimately needs to be worth the climb. And so if it's going to be a long climb, a very long time period before you reach commercialization, I think that those proposals that will be successful with a long time frame are going to have to, they're going to have a big corn grind associated with them, a big utilization of corn.
Excellent, thank you. Our next question is for Derek. What are some things you wish you had known coming into the challenge as a solution provider?
Oh gosh, I'm not exactly sure what the question is asking, but I can talk about it. I can frame it in terms of the application itself. So some of these, I would reiterate some of the things that were just said by Nathan and Sarah about the application. It's not like NIH SBIR level involvement for the application, but I think having a clear description of the technology and that focus on use of corn and a clear commercialization path is really critical for being successful with your application. I'm not sure if I got at the the specific question there, but that's what I would say.
Yeah, thank you. I think you've answered it nicely.
Mm-hmm.
So this question goes back to Sarah or Nathan. Why were the 5 key application areas chosen for this challenge?
Sarah, do you want to start off on this one and I can chime in?
Sure. So when we were thinking about the third Consider Corn Challenge, we wanted to talk about different areas that we've had inquiries from either companies or, as we've worked with agencies like Department of Energy and USDA, what are the hot topic areas and kind of their longer term strategic planning that they're looking into? What are areas of inquiries that we've gotten from independent companies or other researchers? So we tried to take that into consideration. We consulted with folks across the industry as we were working on some other materials, internally, and we kind of came up with these 5 application areas. So the first one was bio-based materials from novel mixes of corn-derived plastics. I think bioplastics is definitely an area that comes to top of mind for folks when we talk about bio-based products. So that was definitely one that we wanted to make sure that we included as a specific application area of interest for this challenge. The second area is around compostable plastics with high tensile strength. And as Pam discussed earlier during the webinar, there's of particular interest if it's edible by ruminants. So this is an area that we've had some interest in from a couple different areas. So we wanted to make sure that we have that specific area of request in this challenge. The third area was around heavy duty fuels or drop-in chemicals. These are things like aviation fuel. Sustainable aviation fuels is an area that's becoming increasingly important, but we're also interested in things like that have applications in bunker fuel, etc. Carbon fiber is another area that we've heard from researchers across the industry having some interest in, and would love to learn more about technologies that you all have as solution providers and potential entries into the third Consider Corn Challenge. And then the last area is other high value molecules that have short-term commercial applications. So this is something that again we've heard a lot of interest in. What are some shorter time to market areas that we can help entries in the Consider Corn Challenge get closer to commercialization in. Nathan, anything you want to add about, I know you hear a lot from various clients across the industry and a plethora of these application areas.
Yeah, I think, I would, obviously one of the key things when you look at the media today that's a really important aspect is really these compostable plastics that Sarah mentioned. So if we can have something that can break down environmentally, right, and this doesn't need to be a new to the world molecule, this could be a mix of PLA, PHA, PLA, PBS, any of these already bio-based molecules that can be made from corn. But show that those things are not going to form these, nanoparticles that end up in fish that aren't going to, choke riverways, things of that nature. I think that, what I would suggest on these is really, kind of look at the societal needs, and if you can match the societal needs with your product, we're going to be really interested in funding that.
Great, thank you. And our next question stays with the Ncga team. If I have a novel approach using corn that does not fit within the 5 areas, am I still eligible to participate in this challenge?
Yeah, thanks, Brandy. So for this one, if you have a novel approach, especially utilizing corn grain or corn starch or the other applicable feedstocks that we outline in the application process, I would still definitely, you are still eligible to participate in the challenge. We've obviously identified those 5 key areas of particular interest, but that doesn't rule out other approaches as well. And we would encourage you to reach out to the Ncga team or reach out to Ncga if you have more questions around that. But I think that that's definitely an area where even if you enter and maybe that novel approach doesn't win, we still often will pass along entries to other industry partners that we have, whether they're other associations or other industry organizations that have the capability to take these technologies to the next level. So would definitely encourage you to still apply and still enter the challenge if you have a novel approach that doesn't fit in with those 5 areas.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned we can go after other platform high-value biochemicals or molecules. Can you define what you mean by short-term commercial applications? Is that less than 1 or 2 years, less than 5?
Yeah, so ideally, as Nathan kind of talked about earlier, we are interested in technologies that can scale up sooner rather than later, ideally in that 2 to 3 year time frame. But as we kind of look at what we define as short term, anything between the next 5 to 7 years is what we're targeting.
Okay, and following up from the previous winners, it seems that all are from industrial partners, none from academia. Does that mean you have more consideration for industrial than academia?
Not necessarily. We've had some winners from South Dakota State University during our first challenge, and then we did have some researchers, while not academia, still with Department of Agriculture. So Nathan, anything you want to add there? But I would say we're definitely open to academia as well.
Absolutely. I'd say that the organization that you're from is not really that important to us. The product that you're trying to do is really essential. And, in fact, I would say that laboratory researcher that's perhaps at a university setting, in a university setting, who is just ready to, take their baby out and show the world, we're really interested in seeing that.
And along those same lines, Ncga is asking for solutions with a clear path for scale up to commercialization. What do we need to include to show the approach has a clear path for scale up to commercialization?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think, the path to commercialization is there's not a single path to commercialization, or we'd all do it. I think that really what we're getting at there, and we don't anticipate that anyone will give us a path to commercialization very early in their development process that will remain, consistent through that. That just, commercialization is a long and winding road. I think mostly what we want is we want to see that, those obvious roadblocks that we might see early on, the researcher has considered, or that the management team has considered, and they've got obvious ways around that. So I think what the people that are submitting applications to this are doing is they're telling us a story, and their story needs to say, we anticipate that we will get these, this is the market we're going to go after. This is our path to market. These are the things that we anticipate we will need to do to be successful at launching a commercial product. So, that's a hazy way to answer the question, but I do think that it's just, we don't believe there's a single right answer to this, but we think that there's a lot of right answers, and what we want to see is we want to see a really good narrative that covers that the proposers have thought of different ways to reach the market. And again, concise is important, but if a researcher can say, if I can't reach the market in this with this approach, then I will try this approach. A plan B shows us that there's been a lot of real good thinking going into the commercial plan. Thanks, Pam.
Thank you. So this question is for Sarah. What help or assistance can Ncga provide to help us progress our ideas to commercialization?
Thanks, Randy. So kind of as we talked earlier about, what is the value beyond the prize pool money, we have a lot of industry contacts, across whether it's academia, governmental agencies, or leaders in this biotech space that we can help leverage connections with them, but it's also a lot of the communication efforts and kind of PR that you get as being a winner of the Consider Corn Challenge that I think is a real benefit to being a winner. And like I said, even if your application isn't selected as a winner, we do sometimes pass along interesting technologies or ideas to other partners that can maybe help take the technology to the next level.
Great, thank you. Are submissions from overseas companies outside the USA being accepted?
Yeah, I think the answer to that is absolutely. The one caveat that I would put on there is there are a number of countries that have some concerns about technology transfer. So we would just need, we'd have to look at that on a case-by-case basis. But there are very few of those.
Thank you. And this is staying with the Ncga team. Does the selection process happen in stages? Will the panel or a representative reach out to us if they have additional questions or need clarification on something?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we will gather kind of these industry experts to weigh in on the applications. We'll definitely review them first as Ncga and Ncga, and then we take it to our panel of judges that will then select the winners. And in the past, we've definitely, if there's areas for clarification that we need or additional questions, the Ncga team will take that feedback from the judges and from Ncga and definitely request more information if that's needed. So great question.
Thank you. So Ncga have asked for proposals that lead to other high-value molecules or platform molecules. Do you have any ideas for what would be interesting solutions or molecules for you?
So I'll take a shot at that, and then Sarah can add in. I would look for those materials that you use every day. So, there's a number of different materials that we use in detergents and plastics, and, look for those ones that might be under some kind of stress, that have some kind of ecological concerns or availability concerns. And those, I believe, will be, those will be the interesting molecules. The fact of that they're used in everyday products kind of gives them credibility as a platform molecule. And the concern, phthalates are a great example, right? Nobody wants to have phthalates as plasticizers in plastics, but they're in every plastic. So, those are the types of things I would really encourage people to look into. Again, kind of using the idea of, you want to skate to where the puck is, as opposed to where, skate to where the puck is going to be, as opposed to where the puck is. So, if you can make the case that I've got a new, let's use the plasticizer example, I've got a new plasticizer that, appears not to have any of the concerns that, the phthalates have, and this is, going to be the wave of the future. I think that's a very, that's a very intriguing story to tell us. Sarah, did you have any thoughts?
No, Nathan, I think you summarized that really well.
And following up on these other molecules that you might be looking for, we produced xylose from corn as platform chemical from corn. Do we need to show conversion of xylose to the chemicals?
I would, so on that, I think that showing that you have a pure product of any nature, xylose or any other sugar, is really interesting. But I think that, obviously we'd want to see that, there's a market for it. You don't necessarily need to take it to, like, for example, xylitol. That would be a great xylose product. You don't need to show us that, but I think that you need to say, there is X number of tons of xylitol used as sweeteners that this would be a feedstock for. So if you don't want to take that next step to the product that might be the product of commercial value, that's fine, but show us that you understand that product, where that product will fit into the marketplace. And if you want to take it even a step further, show us, like, these would be the key interested parties in taking our xylose and converting it.
Okay, we do have a handful more questions to get through. So audience, this is one of your final chances to submit a question to have it answered live. And again, if we run out of time, we are archiving these questions and we will include them with the transcript of the webinar. So a question for Sarah. Would Zyme be considered an appropriate corn-based primary feedstock for this solicitation?
Thanks, Randy. It could be, but we would definitely want to make sure that you kind of show the feasibility of scale up with that technology, and then also keep in mind one of our criteria is, you know, kind of the how much corn will be ground as a result of that technology. So definitely, please be sure to show any calculations on your estimations of feedstock utilization for that type of technology.
Okay, thank you. And we have a few questions around eligibility and the process here. If I do not have existing funding from other partners, am I still eligible to participate? Will my response be judged negatively for the lack of funding partners?
I'll take that one. So the question is, yes, you can still participate and you are still eligible. The request for, you know, for finding out if somebody's funding your development is really to show that there's interest in what you're doing. And so that will obviously weigh a little bit heavier into the judging, because, you know, we want to be able to see that you have a technology that is interesting and that is gathering some attention. And so having funding really just shows that. Also, it kind of goes to the question about, you know, if we show you a list of commercial partners, would that be helpful? So it's the same thing. It just shows that there's interest in your development.
Thank you. What innovations have already been done? Can we take a look at the submissions done by previous winners?
I guess I can jump into that one too. You can take a look at the website, and there are the past challenges will show you some of the prior winners, and you can take a look through there and see what was of interest for the prior 2 corn challenges. I don't know, Sarah, if you wanted to add anything to that.
Yeah, thanks, Pam. And if you go to ncga.com/new uses, we actually have information on all of the 9 previous winners under the Consider Corn Challenge 1 and 2 tabs underneath the, like I said, ncga.com/new uses. And then there's definitely, if you kind of look into the companies, you know, Derek and his Exopolymer group, I think, is a great example of a technology that was really interesting and had a lot of value as a winner of Consider Corn Challenge. So definitely encourage you all to take a look at the previous winners, and you can even look at some quotes that we have from them, testimonials, and there's links to their websites as well.
Thank you. Can I resubmit a proposal from a previous Consider Corn Challenge? Do I have to resubmit it, or can you move it over?
You must resubmit it. So you know, again, I know we mentioned this earlier that, you know, if you applied to the prior challenges and you would like to resubmit, you know, please do that. Also include any additional information that you might have according to, you know, further commercialization of your development or greater uses of corn. So you can't, we can't move your submission over. You must resubmit. Sorry for the bad news.
And our final question: were there submissions to the previous Consider Corn challenges that you would like to see more of, something that was interesting but did not win a prize?
Yeah, I could take a first stab at this, and then Sarah can talk to it. You know, there have been some incredibly good projects. They had the science right. You know, I think that you know, where most of them didn't make the cut was that the markets maybe were too small, or they didn't build out their commercialization plan quite enough. You know, and I think that that's one of those things, as you know, get more and more into a project, you probably have more clarity on what you're going to do. So it totally encourages those types of projects to come back, and particularly for those projects that might have been very focused on a small market. You know, if you can take and make the case that, you know, this is the market we're going after initially, this is going to be our beachhead, but from that particular initial market, we are going to be able to expand to, you know, the second and third market. You kind of show your thinking. Maybe it's getting to a lower cost of production to get to that second market. That would be really exciting. So I would strongly encourage people that have submitted things in the past and maybe gone, particularly after those small markets, to resubmit with maybe a little bit more aggressive approach. Sarah, did you have any thoughts?
No, Nathan, I think you covered that one.
All right, thank you everyone for that engaging Q&A session. As I stated previously, any questions not answered live will be available along with a recording of this webinar on the Ncga Consider Corn Challenge 3 page on 9 sites following this webinar. So what can you do today? On your screen now is some final important information. You can see the web address for the Ncga Consider Corn Challenge 3 page on 9 sites. It's www.9sigma.com/s/considercornchallenge, all one word. Additionally, there is the email address and telephone number for the 9 Sigma Provider Help Desk. If you have a question about this contest or just need assistance with your proposal, the Provider Help Desk is ready to assist you. The email address is phd@9sigma.com. The phone number is +1 216-295-4800, extension 3. A key piece of information, the deadline to submit. Please be sure to submit your proposal online prior to the deadline, Thursday, June 3rd, 2021 at 4 p.m. Central Daylight Time, which is 5 p.m. Eastern. We won't be able to accept proposals after that time. That concludes our webinar today. One final reminder that this webinar was recorded and will be made available along with the Q&A transcript. Thank you to our speakers for their time and expertise. To our audience today, we appreciate your time and look forward to receiving your submission. Have a great day.